Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. My guest today is Kyle Hanan. Such an honor to talk to him here today. He is the current world record holder for the most amount of chemotherapy. He is also the CEO of the Recharge Center. You guys are going to enjoy this episode. Have fun. It's a sweet little system.
This is amazing.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Dude, thank you. I'm stoked.
I appreciate it. I like your hat.
Thanks, man.
I haven't seen a green Diamondbacks hat before.
I was told it's old school.
It looked, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe they were green. I remember they kind of were. I think my dad had one that was green at one point. Way back in the day. Now they're all purple, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. So I like to start the episode off by just kind of giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Tell us about what you've been doing. You've got a very unique and impactful story that I really want to unpack. But please, the floor is yours. I'd love to hear about what you've been doing these days.
Right on. So I'm kind of known as Kyle Hanan, the world record holder in surviving the most chemotherapy and also the cancer patient with the largest biceps in the world. And I forgot to add, we are terminal. So I know there's a lot of cancer patients out there that are pretty fit now, especially with a place like Strict Vision leading the way for a lot of people. So we are at a terminal stage. We've been battling about 11 years now. We've been battling blood cancer. So
oh, wow.
So
when you say terminal, what exactly does that mean?
Terminal means there's no known cure out there. So we're at a point now. I have lymphoma cancer. It's a blood cancer. So we reached a point, you kind of go through stages. So if the first treatment fails and they put you to the next one and the next one up, it's usually after the first treatment fails, you start process on a bone marrow transplant. So we've been through 3 bone marrow transplants, and the final one that you do is called an allogenic bone marrow transplant. So that's where you have a donor that matches with you somewhere in the world. I don't know exactly how that works, and even the top doctors haven't understood all the way how to really hone in on it. But that transplant, we did that, and it put a new immune system in my body. It gave me a new blood type. We went from O negative to B positive, and so currently it
gave you a different blood type?
Yeah, new blood type altogether.
Wait, that's possible?
Yeah,
I didn't know that was possible. You can change your blood type.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
Okay.
And so just the changes in your body, the whole process is an intense process. You basically, it's like having all of your organs transplanted. It's like getting a complete body overhaul transplant. And there's different levels of bone marrow transplants. So in this one, it's an allogenic, and that's a donor immune system, and the type it's very intense. So you're basically in a bubble for a while, for a couple months. The process is 1 year. You have to learn how to talk again, walk again, and things like that. So it's a wild ride. And so out of the allogenic transplant for lymphoma, it's really difficult if you fail the allogenic transplant. If it doesn't work, right now we're at our 7th progression of disease from the allogenic transplant that we did about 5-6 years ago. And there's nobody known out there. I'm in a lot of groups and things like that. So I kind of run with this world record holder thing. We've actually had people challenge me and stuff. So making fun, having fun with it and trying to promote some positivity out of it. But so at 7 progression of disease, nobody's been to this level. So we're in a spot where it's truly, I believe it's a miracle that I'm still here, because the only other person that survived and they did pass was at 2 progressions of disease.
They passed after 2, and you are currently at 7.
That's correct.
When were you first diagnosed with this?
This is about 2011. So
okay.
Just about 11, 12 years ago.
And how did it come to pass? I mean, how does one notice that they have lymphoma?
Yeah. So it was there was a kind of a cluster here. It started out small, like maybe a marble, and it just kept growing. And at the time I was working I've always worked in kind of the health industry. I'm, one of us, we just love the entire working out and exercise thing. So I was working as an exercise therapist, and around a lot of people that were telling me, oh, never do, don't do cancer treatment. Even if it is cancer, you can beat it with something like Rick Simpson oil, or you can use natural treatments and things like that. And so I kind of, the doctor said, I think you got cancer. I kind of avoided it and chased a lot of trails that first year, and it grew to the size of probably like a softball here before I finally, I was just in denial. I finally, confronted, I was actually at a dentist, was an older dentist specialist, because I had it in my mind at the time, it was just my teeth. And I started to lose teeth and things, and he said, son, you got cancer. And then it just hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then once we tested, they said you got 6 months to live without chemo and 1 year with. And I was just, there's no way.
Gosh.
I just watched Breaking Bad, and I was like, wait a minute, Walter White survived, darn it, but what about me, or whatever. So it was I definitely, there were some symptoms that are definitely, my immune system wasn't operating as well. I was getting sick a lot more often and stuff like that. And especially with that growth, interesting enough, we kind of got rid of that. We did treatment and radiation, whittled it down, but with the lymph nodes, it'll spread in the blood. It gets into the blood. So we did all sorts of treatments, and it kind of turn up, we'd get it whittled down a little bit, and then it come back in a different area. And it hadn't been in my neck until just about 3 weeks ago. All of a sudden we got a growth in the neck, and I don't know if anybody, it's kind of now it's kind of like where I started. It's the size of
but on the other
baseball
side,
on the other side. Yeah.
Is it right now? It's the size of a baseball.
Yeah, it's about the size that you can kind of see from here on down. And this one has been a little bit hairy because I feel pretty good otherwise, and a lot of it is because I'm doing things in the direction of what you guys are leading the world in right now, and that all of the health optimization stuff. I'm feeling okay right now. We hammered me with a lot of chemotherapy, and that got rid of some of the cancer symptoms, but this never had this fast a growth. So we were just a little bit late coming in today. Sorry, we were meeting with doctors and trying to come.
Of course,
We're probably going to hit it with some emergency radiation and try to find something to whittle it down, but it's becoming difficult because it's the immune system is so complex, and we've got this transplant. I've got something called graft versus host disease, where the donor immune system will think it's helping, but it will attack my body sometimes.
And are we talking about the bone marrow? That's
exactly
what you're talking about?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So you have, because your blood type changed from
right.
this, now you have a graft versus host rejection of this.
That is
this common?
Yeah, this is common. If you've done an allogenic transplant, you will face some kind of issues with graft versus host. For example, the nurses and doctors have told me one of the worst ways you can go is graft versus host will attack your skin. And unfortunately, there's been patients that it'll attack your skin, and it'll give you third-degree burns from under the skin, from your feet to your head, so you're a burn victim. And it's a really gross way to go, I guess, because your skin is literally, if you cut it open, it's black underneath, like it's literally charred. And
my God.
They don't even really understand how that happens. How does it get to the point of charring the skin from the bottom? But
does this happen when you like if I was in a motorcycle accident and I get a skin graft?
Right.
Is this how this sort of thing would happen if I got a host skin graft that wasn't mine?
Yeah,
and
very
then it rejected
similar.
it?
Very similar. Exactly right. And same as an organ. If you get an organ transplant, it's kind of the same thing, but it's actually in the whole body. So there's been times where it kind of attacked my liver. It's attacked the heart. It's attacked different parts in the body. But the skin is usually, for some reason, that one gets attacked the most, and that's the most risky area.
Yeah, and the most apparent. I mean, if it's on your skin, it's oh man, it's not anything in the same realm of comparison. But having had, like, I've had shingles, I've had anything where you have something where it's burning or itching or pouring or anything like that, your skin is just so incredibly sensitive.
Man, thanks for kind of understanding this as well, because in our bone marrow transplant group, it's obviously, I'm very grateful for the people, and most of these groups are done. It's a worldwide thing online.
How many people? I mean, approximately.
In the blood cancer network, it would be lymphoma, multiple myeloma, and leukemia. There's probably 15,000 on Facebook. In our specific lymphoma group, there's probably 2,400 members. When I first got the bone marrow transplant, we'd lose a couple people a month. Now it's such a great thing that now cancer, I mean, it's not a great thing, but it's incredible that now it's much less. It's like we might lose somebody once every 3 months or so because of breakthroughs in treatment.
Is it because technology
It's
It's gotten
phenomenal.
better.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here right now if we didn't have the breakthroughs, immunotherapy, T cell, all
Mhm.
that stuff. One of the reasons why I kind of ran with the world record thing is I started when we were using a lot of old school chemotherapy, and when I failed, we went to a kind of an experimental chemotherapy from Germany that was different chemo drugs together, and it was just a super strong one. Well, now if you're in the same boat as me, it's just two kind of chemotherapies, one immunotherapy and another normal chemotherapy, which is much more survivable on the body and things.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. What exactly are the? I only know from what I've seen in movies. I mean,
Sure.
what are the potential negative reactions the body has to chemotherapy?
Right. Man, I just got to say, I'm so grateful to be here, and for you even to tap into the bone marrow transplant is a huge deal. When I share this with our group, it's people have a hard time understanding this. When I talk to them, they're either like, I don't want to talk about it, or it's very difficult for them to wrap their mind around and kind of understand exactly what this is. And
Yeah.
your questions are incredible, man. So the chemotherapy thing is you hear chemo, and really it's a broad definition for any kind of medicine that fights cancer. So right now there's probably 300 or 400 different chemotherapy medications out there.
Wow.
And really interesting, when I started, I was like, oh my gosh, this is poison. I had it in my head that as soon as it hit, I was going to start vomiting. And
Yeah.
I did. You see it coming down the wires, and you got a port here into the chemo port, and it's the worst thing. And over time I started studying and asking questions, and the main first chemo drugs were all developed from plants. For example, one of the main chemotherapy drugs is derived from the periwinkle Madagascar rose. So they would use it in,
Really?
yeah, they'd use it in Central America as treatment, and they kind of, when people got tumors or whatever, they'd mix it up. I think it was mixed up with tequila actually, and they, of all things, and they
Sounds
just,
like
That,
that sounds
doesn't,
like to
that
me.
doesn't shock me.
If I have a tumor, whatever you give me, mix it with tequila.
absolutely, yeah. So they'd mix that, and they'd see that some people get rid of the tumors, but then they wouldn't make it. It was hard to get a handle on it. So
Fascinating.
that's where I kind of turned around from, like, okay, there's definitely a lot of issues that I still have with the medical field, and the other non-medical, or whatever you want to call it, Eastern medicine has definitely saved my life. It's been using both of those components, but in this era, super grateful because now they honed in on what level is going to give you the best. And over time, I'm big on research is great, research studies, but the actual data of what is working with the population. Now we've got thousands of people over the last 40 years that tried that particular chemo. I think it's vincristine, and that's one of the most common, especially for pediatric cancer. When COVID hit, there was actually a shortage, so that was a pretty hairy time.
Did it treat COVID in some way?
No, it was there was a shortage of a lot of medicine. That was when there was a shortage of that's the top one for pediatric cancer. Okay. But some of these, the trial that I'm looking at now is Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and we're looking at maybe starting that in the next couple months, is a monoclonal antibody. And it's a nucleated version of it. And that whole field of drugs just boomed out of COVID, because they were really developing those and studying those so deeply that it really has translated into help for cancer patients. And I think that whole area is going to be saving a lot of lives. Not necessarily it's just going to start curing people left and right, but anytime you get some kind of chemotherapy that's going to reduce people's symptoms and at the same time knock out some of the cancer, of course, you're just going to win.
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned you entered a trial for a German experimental chemotherapy treatment. Yeah. Now, with these trials, and now you've mentioned another one, right, being someone who's battled this as long as you have, do you have to reach out to these clinicians and these whoever handles these trials and say, hey, I want to be a part of this? Or are they reaching out to you knowing that you are quite an anomaly?
That's such a brilliant question, man.
Thank you.
Man, you're a sharp thinker. Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's been a combination. It's been, if I get a really good doctor, I was dropped from my treatment place of 7 years because they didn't have any more treatments and insurance got involved. So I've had to advocate for myself a lot to get into these trials or even treatment sometimes. Sometimes insurance is like, we're not going to cover this guy anymore. It's
Wait, really?
yeah, we got to the point where it was
Because they think you just won't die. Like what?
I'm costing so
terrible.
much money because one bone marrow transplant over the course of the year is going to cost the insurance company maybe $700,000 to $1 million. So we calculated up to about, I think we were at 5 or 6 years ago, we were at like $15 million in treatment. So you can see the insurance company isn't real happy with me.
Doesn't that make you angry though
Yeah.
when you hear that? I mean, that's what other function does an insurance company exist to provide?
Amen.
Like
Yeah.
what in the world? What that is literally like I said. Like, oh, this guy just won't die. We shouldn't cover him anymore. It's cold and terrible. But I know that those are the conversations that at the high levels of those places they sometimes have.
You're right. And that's why it's been really important. I try to advocate for other patients now that I'm kind of known in the cancer groups. They'll say, hey, they'll just tag me and they'll say, hey, Kyle, I got a question or whatever. And so I try to encourage patients. You get stuck in that spot where it's just, you don't want to get off the couch. You're just in sheer terror that, hey, I'm going to die. I don't know how to pop out of this.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, insurance is coming at me. How am I going to afford this? And sometimes, unfortunately, you get kind of shuffled into a general doctor who's just overwhelmed with patient load and things like that. But what's really been big for me is actually the pharmaceutical companies, and they got their things too, but the pharmaceutical companies have been really good to me over the years. I've advocated for myself, and I'll reach out to at points for example, I reached out to a pharmaceutical company 4 years ago when the insurance company did not approve a drug that was new that my doctor really believed in. It was actually in the monoclonal antibody class. Reached out to the pharmaceutical company and they were able to give me a compassion care for 1 year for free.
Oh, wow.
And so like with that and the trials, I always kind of keep my ear to the ground in our groups. We have people that are good at different things. We have, for example, one woman in our group her job was in that area before she got cancer, or actually her son did. So now she's just dedicated into keeping track of trials. So I can just holler at her and she's like
That's
a machine
great.
with that stuff.
What's her name?
Lori, I forget her last name, darn it. Yeah,
Good for her though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really awesome.
We got to put that name out there, but she's been battling for her son. I mean, it's been tremendous to watch how much she cares for everybody. But
so her son was diagnosed.
Exactly.
And she's the clinician that researches.
Yep.
I get it.
And she's a mom who's just,
well, yeah,
do anything for the son.
That adds a certain layer of dedication beyond any sort of credential you could ever have.
Exactly. So yeah, it's with the trials, it's been sometimes the doctor's like, hey, fortunately I got connected with a very just amazing general oncologist. Well, he's limited in what he can do because there's no bone marrow transplant. That's why I was having trouble getting a doctor for a while, because they didn't want to touch me because of the graft versus host issues and things like that. So this doctor took me on. He's just one of these doctors. He's just a great guy. I see him and he's a guy like us. He shakes my hand and, hey brother, gives me a hug and stuff. And he's been really good at reaching out to other doctors. And that's why I got connected with this Mayo one. So sometimes it's kind of the doctors. I've always encouraged people to just keep reaching out and develop that network, because you never know who might be out there that could help you when you get in a jam.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. You mentioned something that I wanted to bring back up, which is the obviously traumatic news of having cancer of any kind, and how people have sometimes a tendency to sort of isolate, curl up, and just can't even believe it's happening to them, and to the point where they think they're going to die. Are you familiar with the negative placebo effect? I just researched this and just found this. So there's the placebo effect,
Sure.
which is where if you're given in a pharmacology stand, if you're given a supplement or something along those lines that you think will help you,
Right.
it ends up helping you.
Yeah.
The reversal of that is the negative placebo effect, which is where if people believe, and they showed this, I don't exactly recall the study, but they had a misdiagnosis of a guy who thought he was going to have cancer. They diagnosed him with it. And it was a smaller period of like a month where he thought he had cancer, and he disappeared because he went through a phase just like what you just said, where they found out the guy went off the radar. He stopped talking to his family. He was so terrified. And when they brought him back to tell him, hey man, we messed up your test, this wasn't actually what happened to you. Right. He had actually developed a different form of cancer, but had developed the early on stage of cancer from that news. So my question to you is, I mean, when someone gets because there's millions of people have cancer.
Yeah.
This is I believe one of the leading causes of human death is cancer.
Absolutely.
When someone gets something like that, a diagnosis like that, I mean, what would you tell somebody like that as far as their first 48 hours, their first week? How do you process that?
Right. You tapped into something that I've been struggling with a lot, because I get called on a lot with questions like, what should I do? I mean, exactly what you described. And me, in my first year, I chased a lot of avenues to not do chemo, because who wants to do chemo? Who wants to do treatment or whatever? So I chased the vegan diet. For some people that's been different diets or whatever, for whatever reason has helped. I chased some herbal cancer treatments and all sorts of stuff like that. So when somebody comes to me like that, maybe they're in the first week or 48 hours and they're asking about that, they're like, hey, I believe in Rick Simpson oil. I believe this has cured a lot of people. So it's really, and maybe that's too strong of one, or maybe it's like somebody's like, I'm in treatment right now and I want to use vitamin whatever. I've heard that this helps fight cancer. Mm-hmm. So I really struggle at those times, because if I tell that person that's not helping you at all, if it's not hurting them, then there's a placebo effect. It may help them. So although it's not doing anything to help them really, I'm a big proponent of marijuana, for example. Marijuana has been, I believe, is good for cancer in terms of dealing with the symptoms, but there's zero evidence out there, especially for blood cancer. And unfortunately, I've lost one very close friend who chased the Rick Simpson oil, which I'm also a big fan of. But as an actual,
you keep mentioning that. What is that?
Yeah.
What is the Rick Simpson oil?
It's an oil that is just an extremely intensified, just very, in a grain of rice that has just a super high THC level. So there's been claims, and it's an underground thing. It's a tough thing because, of course, we know how the government has been hard on marijuana in history for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, they are right in trying to stop something as this being the cure for all cancer. For example, blood cancer and other cancers, like a kidney cancer, are so different that one treatment, it'd be impossible for it to stop it. It'd be like trying to use a drug that treats the common cold and a broken bone or something at the same time.
Has this oil ever been proven to be efficient in helping with any type of cancer?
There's a lot of claims out there. When I've chased the trails and asked for absolute evidence, I've found no evidence of anybody that can show me that they used it without going to the doctor. Because how do you know you have cancer unless you go to the doctor? You got to have a diagnosis. You got to show you refused treatment, and then you got to show that there's no cancer in your body with scan or blood test. Haven't found any evidence of it.
It's going to have to, for something like that. I mean, I don't always lean into the peer-reviewed study, but for something like anything with the word cancer in it, you need to show peer-reviewed evidence before you start telling people to do it. You're talking about life and death here.
You're so true.
This is not a fitness thing. Like, this is a life and death thing. So you need to make sure that everything you suggest, that's why something like this is so severe. Your advice really, really holds weight when you tell somebody, because there's a big stigmata, especially today, around Western medicine, and justifiably so for some areas. I mean, people have been really hurt by pharmacies and by doctors, and
100%.
A lot of people died in COVID, and maybe they do or don't like the vaccine, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Western medicine is the most cutting edge stuff that human beings have ever come up with in the medical field. I mean, for something like lymphoma, you need to take this as serious as it is.
100%.
So what would you say is the balance between Eastern? Is there anything in the Eastern medicine category that you would say helps with this, aside from marijuana?
Right. Kratom has been, I learned about it through, I think you've been connected. Yeah, you were connected to Andrew from the Mark Bell Powercast. That was one of the first podcasts I began listening to, and I learned about, Chris Bell did a documentary called Leaf of Faith. And that's he's a proponent of kratom and helping him. It's been, I think he was using it more to help him come off of opioids and medication and things like that.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. Right. And I've this probably been my number one right now. I'm using that. I'm not using any other medication I'm dealing with some pretty high level pain from this tumor in my neck. And that's been a good one, because if I need to come off of it, and that's been a huge thing in my treatments. I've been at times the bone marrow transplants, or when I'm deep into treatment, I'll be hooked to multiple pumps and having lines coming in to catheters and all sorts of all over my body. So been on fentanyl pumps and things like that, where you can basically just hit it and get as much as you want. So coming off these drugs, I learned, whoa, this is one of the biggest battles. Coming off of chemo drugs, even, you're actually trying to detox and get that stuff, that medicine out of your body. That's been one of the toughest battles. Kratom has been an example of a medicine that has helped with pain. There's different strains of it. It's helped me with energy, mood a little bit, and it's, at least for me, and it seems like for a lot of people, it's not too hard to come off of.
How do you spell that? Kratom.
Kratom.
Kratom. Where would someone go to find the best kratom? I mean,
In Arizona, it's legal. You can go to most smoke shops and get it. I believe
Do you smoke it?
You can smoke it, but I've tried that actually, and I've tried vaping it. A lot of people use it in teas. It's found mostly cultivated in Southeast Asia.
Yes, it's indigenous to Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. Okay, so it's a leaf. You can make it into a tea. And this is what most people do, I assume, is just drink it like a tea?
Yeah, tea, or in capsules. I'll just take the herb and I get it in capsule form.
Got it.
Sometimes it's tough to research and make sure that it's, of course, like anything else, that it's a fresh source. If I have used tea, that definitely seems to work a little better, but it's a little impractical sometimes if I'm out and about running around and stuff, and I just want to pop those capsules.
Does it help with detox? I mean, for someone, even somebody who's not battling cancer?
I believe it saved my life, definitely, because coming off of all those drugs, I will transition off of them with kratom. If I get into long-term jams where we're waiting to do a treatment for whatever reason, and I'm just in crazy amount of pain where my heart rate gets, I test my resting heart rate. If my resting heart rate is up 15 to 20 beats per minute from the pain, then I know I got to do something, because that stress is not worth dealing with, because that's going to impact my ability to fight off the cancer, whatever the problem is.
Yeah.
So then I'll hit it with kratom. There's been times where if kratom doesn't work, and I'll try another one, kava a little bit.
Does kratom help with pain?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's
hugely.
a pain management as well. It's not just for detox.
It's a very interesting drug, because it's a coffee alkaloid, and it's somewhere in between coffee and marijuana. There's different strains of it. So the one I use mostly is green Malay. That one's a little bit more uplifting. I heard about it first on the Bell podcast from Encino, I can't say his name ever. There you go. Yeah. And he uses it a pre-workout before jiu-jitsu. So it's kind of there's some more sedative type where it makes you feel a little more tired and relaxed. Those ones didn't, and different people seem to fit with different strains. So it's kind of like maybe with marijuana, you kind of find one that kind of works with you.
And how addictive is that substance?
That's a good question too. If you're not careful with it, I've known people that will, it's like any other medicine, anything out there. When I started, I could use 2, and that did the thing. Over time, over weeks and weeks, I'd have to get up to 10. Then I'd have to hit reset, because I realized, hey, pretty soon I'm gonna be up to 20. And then once you get to a certain level, like any drug, you're getting those side effects a little bit more. So I think people with addictive personalities, they have to be careful jumping into it. I think I've met people, Chris Bell, that coming off at something, some kind of like something like Oxy, using that to transition off of it seems a little bit easier or whatever
than just going cold turkey.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's in the direction of coffee, I would say, where when you do come off of it, you notice something like, I don't necessarily get the headache, you get from a coffee, but I definitely get
jitters. You get anything like that?
Not
like jittery, or
not jittery so much. And that's one thing about kratom, is you don't get those coffee jitters as much. It's a little bit smoother. I feel like I'm a salesman right now for kratom. But honestly, I mean, the honest truth is, it's like I'm using it right now. I haven't had to, if I have to, and it gets really bad and I exhaust everything else, I try to avoid this as much as possible, because this is a long fight here, is I will tap out from my body Oxy and Ativan together, and I try to keep those doses low. But once I get into the 3rd day of Oxy, I need to up that dose, whereas in kratom, I can usually float on a dose for a week or 2 before I need to start making adjustments. And there's different strains, so I think that helps as well, is that you can hop onto one strain, hop off another one. Sometimes I'll roll over to CBD for a little bit, and it's just kind of like...
Does that help?
Yeah,
the CBD?
CBD at night
without the THC?
Yeah, it has helped me, but it's been I have to go a really high dose with it. I've found I've tried a lot of different versions of it, but I had to go really high with it, and then you're in a a more of a kind of sleepy mode. So in the daytime doesn't work good. Whereas kratom, I can be out and about and stuff.
That was going to be my next question about it. So this kratom, if let's say I'm sober and I'm not in pain,
Right.
if I take this, am I going to feel a buzz?
Yeah,
Am I going to get
yeah.
so I'm going to get kind of like a coffee
There you go.
rush
Yep.
type of feel. Okay.
Yep, yeah.
So it actually does have that makes sense though for
Yep.
jiu-jitsu. Now I know a lot of athletes, we just had on I can't remember. But
James Pierrett.
that's it. Yes. And he was saying that a lot of the guys will actually use marijuana before they go and they do jiu-jitsu because it
Sure.
gives them a much
Yep.
more calm, focused, sort of fluid feel.
Right.
And I know this is the first I'm hearing about it. Ensema
Yeah.
uses it for this. Does
Yeah.
it provide that same kind of a focus and feel, or is
Not-
it a little different?
That's a good question. So I've experimented with marijuana before jiu-jitsu. I compete in jiu-jitsu the last 3 years, right? In the last 3 months, I haven't been able to as much. So I've tried marijuana before. I've tried kratom before. I've experimented a little bit with microdosing or mushrooms before. And those are the three probably most common that people have experimented with, and they all bring something a little bit different. When I've tried marijuana, has helped sometimes when I don't have a lot of pressure and I know I'm going to be working in a safe environment. It's going to be more flow stuff. I don't need to really hone in and learn a really complex sort of movement or whatever.
Sure.
For example, I got caught one day where all of a sudden the coach was like, all right, we're going to line up on the wall and we're going to do Shark Tank where everybody's watching and you got a battle in the middle. And I had just done an edible, and man, that when I went in there and I rolled, I had to say time out, and what's wrong? And I said, I did too much of this edible and I had to walk outside or whatever. So that's been a little bit tough. I train with Tim Welch, USC coach is who I train under, and
I'd love to meet him.
Oh yeah, and he's the coach of Sugar Sean O'Malley, who got to know him pretty good. They've just been.
I think I've seen him. Isn't he the guy with like the crazy hair?
Yeah.
He's crazy. He's a heck of a. You ever seen that guy? Sugar.
Redhead?
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about him. He's that guy. I can't even begin to tell you. It's been 3 years since I came into touch with those guys, and I don't know I kind of think we're on the same page about the COVID stuff or whatever, and I got respect for all beliefs and everything. But when COVID hit, it told me, because when I've tried to take the flu vaccination or other vaccination, all my vaccinations were wiped out. The baby ones had been wiped out, so I had the choice to take those
wiped out.
vaccinations
What do
with
you
the
mean,
bone marrow transplant. So
Okay, so when you get this done, your blood type changes. All your previous existing vaccinations are void.
right.
And this is nuts. I did not know this happened when you get a bone marrow transplant.
It's wild.
That's
Definitely
wild.
So they wipe them out, and then they give you get set with the same vaccinations that a baby gets. So
did you get
I
like
rejected
tuberculosis?
them. I weaseled my way out of them.
Oh, so you didn't take any?
Yeah,
of them?
and I'm not necessarily an anti-vaxxer sort of crazy on that far of an end. I got respect for everybody, but for me, I chose not to, because every time I gotten the flu shot, I would end up with the flu right away. There's another I took another vaccination. I can't remember what it was before they were wiped out in it, and I got whatever that was supposed to be fighting. So I said, no, let's just try to roll without that. I'm already in enough trouble here, you know what I mean? So let's try this. And so we moved forward without it. I decided, and I went through some stuff of doctors being angry with me and not getting approved for things, having to sort of fabricate that I had taken the shot when I didn't, and things like that. So I didn't get the shot, but I had been avoiding people. I've been in isolation a lot. I've been basically probably the first 5-6 years I'd lived in a bubble. It's a vacuum kind of sealed room in the hospital.
Like a literal bubble in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you go through bone marrow transplant, you're put into that. So my immune system would be zeroed out a lot, and then I would be in there, because then you get one little piece of bacteria, PCP pneumonia, and it's hard for the body to fight it off, and then you got cancer and stuff. Or when I would be released, I was kept under strict supervision, and I couldn't go outside and things. So little by little, I'd start pushing it. Like, I felt like, hey, there's something here. I shouldn't just avoid the sun. I should let it hit me for a couple minutes, and then see, little by little, build up, and the whole medical field, they have to be careful because they can't say test it out and try it and then you die or whatever, and they get sued. So it's just kind of like,
right.
it's kind of like
Practicing medicine.
there you go. Yeah, I forgot what I took us on another trail. Sorry about that.
No, I'm happy you brought it up. It's a very it's a very important topic to discuss that it seems a lot of times we're really discouraged from doing. What you're going through and your exact situation. I mean, I like you, I'm also not really an anti-vaxxer. I never was. I was vaccinated as a kid. I mean, I think we all were. Sure. So it was never really in the forefront of my mind to battle one way or the other on this. But okay. You know, you hear guys like, I mean, like Andy Frisella, for example, is talking about, you know, he has some health condition, and I don't know the details, that prevented him from taking the vaccine. He had some extreme extenuating circumstance, and you do too. You're a living example of what people like him and even a large majority of the anti-vax community are arguing for. Like, look, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't.
Sure.
We can't make a blanket statement saying everyone has no choice but to do this. Right. There are some of us out here who have real medical reasons to not take this, to not risk this. True. And that, I mean, I'm sure you got a little pressure from since you rub up against the medical community so intimately. Yeah. Did you experience that at all? I mean, people were mad at you, like not happy.
Doctors, a couple doctors dropped me, wouldn't treat me. My main doctor was very switched from being really cool with me to being super angry. People had strong opinions about it. So that was a big battle. But what did help me is a horrible thing, what everybody was going through at that time. People were masking up. And for some reason, that made me want to get out more. I was out and about more during that time, even though places were closed. And I got invited to the jiu-jitsu gym where Tim Welch owns it. And I went in and started training, and something just hit me. I'm a God guy, so something, and I thought, man, I don't always know. Sometimes I've been wrong, but I felt heavily impressed. I can't explain it, to go start training there. And little by little, I would train, and you know, in jiu-jitsu, you're rolling and you sweat. So many sweat drops in your eye. It gets kind of gross and stuff. You're exposed to a whole petri dish of different stuff. So I would be in there and I might catch a little something. I caught little skin stuff, gross stuff going on, and then my body would fight it off, and I get back and something said, just keep training like crazy. And being around these guys, Sugar Sean and Tim, and the community of Soul Fighters Gym, where I was training, they saw what I was dealing with. And it was something where some of these guys fighting MMA, jiu-jitsu, younger guys, you know, they'd be in the sauna, making weight and things like that. They'd see what I was going through, and I'd see what they were going through, and it would just help. We just would lift one another up. So somehow through that, I got healthier. My body just kept getting stronger and stronger. So I just kind of leaned into that whole thing of just pushing in and not hiding in a bubble anymore. Now, there's times I don't want to just step out there and, you know, to do something crazy, but I believe it was an example to me as the immune system doesn't get stronger if you coddle it. It gets stronger when sometimes you have to let it go back a little. It's like lifting weights. You got to go back a little bit if you want to grow, that whole principle.
Yeah. two steps forward, one step back. It's the herd immunization is the technical term for that. I mean, getting exposed to the things that you're gonna be exposed to it one way or the other. I mean, some of my favorite videos are those people that are like wearing a mask and then they go and they blow out a candle on a cupcake or something. You're like, okay, well, you know, maybe they work, maybe they don't. I don't know. But I know if you're alive on this planet for long enough, you're going to bump into these diseases. And it seems like you're doing yourself a big disservice by constantly alienating yourself from, I mean, you were literally in a bubble. I mean, you were in a bubble taking this treatment on, and then you had to make, because to me, the more I think about it, that had to have been a tough decision to make.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of your medical professionals, as you've stated, were more than insisting that you take that you get the jab and that you go on your merry way. And at the time, you know, some of the research and what they were saying, they probably agreed with, you know, the science that, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to die. I remember there was a period of time where people were like, oh yeah, if you don't take this, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Or that it will stop it. And we've heard so many different interpretations of it. But you being in a place with a compromised immune system had to have been in your own mind thinking, okay, well, if I don't take this, I might die.
Yep.
I mean, if I get
100%.
COVID,
Yeah.
I'm a high risk person.
Right.
How did that conversation go for you in your mind?
Oh man, yeah, it was especially when it first hit, nobody really knew it was happening. Then I was like, man, maybe I should.
And where were you when it first hit? I mean, if you could take me back to when it was when
Yeah.
it was the scariest. You know, what was it? Like January to
Yeah,
May
January,
of 2020.
yeah,
when
exactly right.
Everyone couldn't
Yeah.
go grocery shopping. Well, where were you?
Yeah, I was just we got a house. I was living in a condo, 2-bed, 2-bath. I got 3 kids, CJ 17, Kai 13, and Luke 12.
Congrats, man. That's cool.
We were working. My wife and I both worked at a company called Fostering Hope. We work with adult developmentally disabled. We place them into homes.
Oh wow.
So it amazingly enough, meeting these guys at Soul Fighter and Sugar Sean, I had been training there for maybe 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and they had gotten to know us, and people from the gym would come over to our house and we'd do fight parties, like Sugar's fight, and everybody comes to our house. And my wife loves to cook. That's been her passion. She's originally from the Philippines. Ara, Chef Mama Ara.
Yeah.
So she'd cook for everybody and we'd have a good time. And then it got to be this thing where there was like 60, 70 people coming to our house, and we're like, oh shoot, I don't know if we can afford this anymore. So somebody put out a tip jar, and one thing led to another, and our entire community moved over to the old Arrowhead Mall in Peoria. There's an Arrowhead Mall now new in Glendale, and there was just Die Hard Gym. I don't know if you heard of that over there. It's an old school gym. It's straight out of the 80s. It hasn't changed. They produced a lot of powerlifting, but the entire rest of the mall had just been abandoned pretty much. One guy from our gym, Sean Fairchild, put in kind of just a small version, kind of like an Optimized Health, Art of Recovery, where he had the cold plunge and stuff. So I go in there and use those things, and I was looking around in the community, and in between this time, if I forgot to mention, a few months back, I got into big trouble where it was basically I was going to have to be out of work for 2 or 3 months. We were going to have to do a very intense treatment. The community found out about this at Soul Fighters, and we were not people to ask for anything, and probably would have been okay, but it was a big stress on the family. And Sugar Sean stepped through, and nobody never told anybody, but he gave us $5,000, and the community together raised about $12,000 for our family at that time. And just Sugar Sean is known as UFC guy, as a very kind of outlandish, trend-setting, sort of guy. He's got a huge following. He's really worldwide. His brand is growing phenomenal, but he's one of the most just kindest, humblest, genuine, realest, hardest working guy. I mean, here's a guy, since I've known him, he hasn't missed a day getting in the cold plunge before he goes to bed. He'll get in there for 3 minutes before sleep, and that's got him the #1 score in the UFC. So back to I'm sorry, I'm going all over, but back to that old Arrowhead Mall. We're in there. My wife and I took a risk. I'd just been dropped from my bone marrow transplant program. We're like, hey, I might go. My doctor's last words to me, the one that was kind of angry at me for the COVID stuff, this had been boiling over 2 years now, or a year or so, had said, you're not going to make it the end of the year unless you go to Texas and you get the COVID shot and do another bone marrow transplant at MD Anderson, Texas. And it just didn't make sense to me. We already failed. There's a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I took a risk, and we started making meals out of this shop there. Sugar Sean from the beginning was a huge encouragement to us. We proceeded to kind of our company merged into Meal Prep, which I've become a huge fan of. There's many good. I think you guys are working with a really awesome meal prep company. Who are they?
We're not officially working with anybody just yet. We've had a couple in here. I think War Fuel is the last guy we talked to. He's local. He seems like a solid guy, but no, I mean, right now we're not locked in really to anybody just
for
yet.
Sure.
But I know the value of it. It's incredibly.
Thanks to them, they paved the way so that we could give this a run. Well, Sugar Sean immediately were like, oh shoot, he's like, can you do my fight camp? And for me as a longtime UFC fan and stuff, I was out of my skin about it. I was like, oh my gosh, and she was too. So
meals. He wanted you to do meals for the fight camp.
Exactly. So we ended up working together. We got linked with Dan Garner. He's been on the Mark Bella Powercast, and he's one of the top sports nutritionists in the world. He's up in Canada, just an awesome dude. He does a lot. He does Sugar Sean's, all of his nutrition. Work together with him. We've done Sugar's last 3 fight camps, and he's been successful. He's ranked #1 in the world right now. He's ended up doing a lot of other fighters camps and stuff, and our company just has been just blessed from the community support. We're outgrow our place. Well, the new news is that we're actually going to partner with Sugar and launch a franchise here coming up, the Recharge Center. He mentioned us on the Joe Rogan show, so that really boosted.
Oh, did he go on Joe?
Yeah, he went on Joe
Oh,
Rogan.
cool.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, so I can't even express how much Sugar and Tim Welch and that community, they've just been having a community of people, it's especially if you're like-minded in health optimization.
The Recharge Center. Okay, so I see it. So you're doing meal preps. Those are good.
We should have
really
brought some,
good.
darn it. We'll have to get you some over here.
Oh, I'd love it.
Give me an excuse to peek in it here at this I cannot believe this amazing facility here, man. You should, I don't know how you do. I'm going to have to ask you how you do business here. I think you should charge for tours. I think people would pay to tour this place. I swear to you,
I like the way you think.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. We videoed it, and I think I'll be able to share that, right? I can't wait to share this with everybody, how awesome this place is. When you're here, I mean, you can see it on video, and it's awesome, but when you're here, it sparks. It's a special place. Yeah, we do.
Thanks, bro.
Or we do all organic meals. We have some grass-fed options. Chef Mama Ara is starting to get known. She's a really talented cook. She's made about 70 different dishes, so we're pretty excited.
That's great.
We're trying to, always get little trials and hitches. We got this cancer one, right? A new cancer thing going on right now, but we're really excited about what's ahead.
Yeah, man. So, it seems like, even despite the circumstances that you find yourself in and what has turned into a battle for life over a not small amount of time, what most attracted me to you, and really why this episode is airing, I found almost an inexplicable amount of positive energy and just positivity coming from you, what you were saying, the stuff you were doing in a situation where, I mean, people in a far, far less horrible situation would not be radiating even half the positivity that you seem to be pushing toward. Where does that come from? What is it that what impact does the attitude that you have and the positivity that you give out have toward your recovery? And what would you say to somebody else? Again, back to the person who's dealing with this, who's got this diagnosis, who's dealing with this. How do you stay so positive?
Man, I'm almost choked up a little bit. Thank you for saying that, brother. Geez, man, that's really amazing. It's that nobody wants to get cancer or anything like that, and I never signed up to become a record holder in this area or anything like that. But the blessings that it's brought me and being able to hopefully impact people of what you're talking about, I'm so grateful for. My source, that's 11 years ago or whenever it was, I lose track. I use there's a phrase, chemo brain. I don't know if you guys heard of it, where when you do a lot of chemo, they call it chemo brain because you kind of forget stuff. It kind of messes with your function and things like that. But honestly, I've always been like this. Sometimes I just don't remember. You know what I mean? So no, it's 11 years ago. Get diagnosed. I was in sheer fear and just terror and just looking online trying to figure out what this was. And when my boys were 2 and 3 at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm a God guy. I'm kind of maybe lukewarm. I go to church sometimes. I feel like I'm okay. I feel like I know where I'm going. But my boys, where are my boys? They're not going to remember their dad. I just couldn't get over it. I was just overwhelmed with everything. And, this cancer was blowing up more and more. And I came across somebody that told me, how could you ever think you could be a better father than our Father in heaven? And that one just took the focus off myself. And for whatever somebody might believe, it put my focus onto, hey, God's got this. And it shifted me to start to be a person who, I was kind of almost an introverted type of person. And it got to me to be a person that I felt so much health and benefit every time I reached out to somebody. Whenever I reached out to somebody and connected with them, learned about them, maybe I have something to pick up their day. I realized I'd be in the hospital very sick. I kind of like, the nurses would come, and I kind of just kept going in that direction. It's like, whoa, whenever I do this, I feel better. And it just became like my first thing I would go to. If I could help a cancer patient over in Australia and 2 a.m. that just messaged me, that made me feel better. And that kind of boosted me up. But really it's when the cancer hit, I said, hey, God, are you real? I've been following you. If you're real, man, do something. And ooh, sorry about that. So he really he hit me so hard in the first year. Like there was a time where I was in hospice care and the family came in to say their goodbyes, and I just felt God's presence so deeply. I really fell into praise and worship. Just, I couldn't do anything, but I would have somebody play praise and worship, praise music, God type music or scripture, and I would hear it, and I would be, everything else around me would be hooked up to everything. And this has been my experience being in the bubble and stuff, but I would just get this incredible peace inside, like, just a courage that, hey, it's, I got you. I just feel this tremendous thing. And I respect all beliefs. It could be the fact that I'm just releasing everything and I'm getting the focus off of me, but really 100% I believe it. And maybe it's this is what's helping me, is that placebo effect, and I'm keeping it there. But my belief is so strong. The more deep that I've gone into learning about God, learning the word, I'll go deep into the Psalms. Sometimes I would just play them over and over in my head, and I meditate on the Psalms. The Psalms are the ones that I go to in scripture more than anything. Anytime I get overwhelmed, I feel fearful, anything like that, I will go to the Psalms. And those seem to bring me a lot of peace, or, sometimes it doesn't immediately do something, but it, it's been, I believe Jesus is God. So he's been my source. He's been from the root. Man, I did it 3 times, darn it. I am coming off of prednisone, so I'll be watching a commercial and I get like that. There you go. Another thing too is I had to learn to shed tears. There's a lot of studies about the healing effects of tears, and not to get carried away with it to the point of like we just let it overtake us, and that becomes, takes us down a channel of being a victim. Yeah. But those tears, something special happens.
It's a release.
There you go.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Super healthy, especially for men. We're told not to, but I felt that, hey, what's going on? I can't shake this. Oh man, here it comes. I just need to let, then I just got to let it go for a little bit and then back at it. Nothing happened.
Yeah, that's so powerful, man. And that's an incredible, I love that. That's a better answer than I think brother. I could ever have given. I also appreciate the Psalms, and I love during times of trial, because that's the context with which a lot of those passages were written. I mean, the King David, a lot of them were crying out. A lot of the times it's very troubled times that led to the writing of those Psalms. And I feel like there's real encouragement in scripture, and whether or not you're a believer, the power of thinking eternal is not to be underestimated. I mean, realizing that we're here for a very short time.
So true.
You get 100 years if you're lucky.
Oh,
and then,
so true.
And then you're going somewhere else for a heck of a lot longer than you're here.
Wow. That's so true. I've been reflecting on James 1 a lot this week, is do not be surprised at the trials that you're in. And I'm paraphrasing here because I go into different version. I'll go into the Message sometimes, and it's one of the spots in there says it considered a sheer gift, and then it says don't try to get out of it too early. And I've been reflecting on it a lot, like, whoa, a gift, darn it. Sometimes it, I got this new one that popped out right in the middle of when we're building this business, and it's like, oh shoot, I've never had tumors grow this fast before, and this is throwing me off. We had a night where we cried together a couple days ago because it was like, whoa, this is it's getting into my ear and into the throat and stuff, and man, there's nothing we can do at this point because we just did a chemo. So all these things going on, and this doesn't seem like a gift, but that part that I've been really focusing on, and I'm not always good at totally relying on it, but that don't try to get out of it too early. We do our best, we live healthy as we can, but there's a purpose for it. Where I was 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to handle this. So I think that's the case for a lot of us. We've been put through a trial, and now we have something that, hey, we can not only handle more, but we have something where we can use it to help other people who are in a tough joint. And that's just builds what a great health optimization tool.
And what better way is there for any of us to spend our time while we're here is helping others. That's a big big perspective shift. You're not the first person to be in this type of a terminal state
True.
that's told that to me, that you really come to really appreciate and account for the days you're given, for the day you're currently in. You live much more in the present and way less in the future, which is how I feel like all of us, myself included, get caught up in that trap. And it is a trap where you don't ever really appreciate the person you're in front of, the day that you have. You are always thinking about tomorrow and next week and next week. And we just, a lot of times I think we really need to change that perception and understand that, yes, we are eternal beings and we're going to live a lot longer than we think.
True.
Even when we leave this place. But while we're here, appreciate the time we have, the day we've been given, and the bodies that we have, because these are all gifts. Every single day is a gift.
So true, brother. Man, that's good word. I love that. And you'd think that in my situation that, thanks for saying I'm really positive, but I have my days too where I forget those things. You'd think, hey man, I've experienced this life and death thing where people get into this thing and we're for some reason it still happens. What is going on? I'm writing on this way. Well, what all of a sudden happens? Why is that? But I'm grateful I serve a God where I don't understand him all the way. I don't know everything that's going on, and I'm grateful that we do get to experience this learning that you mentioned, eternity. Imagine learning into eternity. What's it going to look like? What will our senses be like in heaven? What's the learning that we're building right now, where our gifts are being set? What's that going to look? What's 1,000 years going to look like? Oh my gosh.
Very hard to. I think the limitations of our mind are set here on purpose. I think the great mystery of everything beyond the finite human experience is left as a mystery. Ooh. And I think that's again, I don't believe anything God did ever was an accident, but I think that one, especially when I think about it more and more, it puts a lot more emphasis on the value of faith. Because if you don't have faith, because faith is all you have, we've got things on here on it. We've got medical science. We've got all the stuff we've got here. But at the end of the day, once you die, it doesn't matter what you had here. You got to have faith that there's something beyond that. And I think God did that on purpose.
You're right. That's brilliant. That's some deep wisdom. I tell you might have spent some time in the Proverbs, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. No, growing up as we did, we've been very blessed. Our parents raised us. We're both Christian men, and awesome. we've always had that as a part of our lives, and it's something that you have to come to appreciate it more. I think as a man, you have to make it really matter on your own. You can't necessarily, and to your earlier point about wondering, what will my sons become, what will my kids do, because it's true. I mean, you can have the most devout father who believes in God and eternity, all that stuff, but you can't give that to your kids. They have to come to that on their own.
So true. But
yeah, man, powerful stuff. So with everything you're doing, I mean, how would I first want to know? I mean, if there's somebody out there who, let's take the worst case, and let's say they just got diagnosed today,
right? Yeah,
and they hear this, and they want to reach out, and they want to say something to you. I mean, where would they go about doing that?
Oh, they can hit me up on Instagram. Probably is good. I'm on Facebook. Facebook seems to have, because of the Facebook groups, it seems to have a better group presence. There used to be old message boards, bulletin boards, but now it seems like Facebook
groups are the way to go.
Yeah, and I don't use as much itself, but those groups. So I check my stuff pretty frequently, or my wife does on Facebook or Instagram.
And your Instagram is Kyle.Hanan, Hanan. Is it the same for the Facebook group? You mentioned that you're part of a couple of them. Which one would you recommend someone join?
It kind of depends. I would really look for one. I'd search one and welcome to send me a message as well, and I can try to connect you. I think just reaching out, and it depends what cancer you have. If you have a blood cancer, I'd go right for a blood cancer group, and then maybe ask on the board, is there more specialized form? The main one that I'm in is called the Hodgkin's Refractory and Relapsed group. So it's all people who've had.
How do you spell Hodgkin's?
Hodgkins. Okay. So it's that's a specific type of lymphoma that I was originally diagnosed with, but then you have subtypes. They're all weird long terms, as mine's nodular sclerosing. lymphoma, but then there's a subtype under that that's been unidentified. So it's something in the T cells. So in my group, I found one that was just specialized. It's not a huge number of percentage of the blood cancer, but there is a group pretty much for any type of cancer out there now.
Got it. Yeah. So then I would say, guys, if this is brand new to you, maybe message the Instagram.
100%.
Talk to Kyle. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Thank
and
you.
then same thing for the meal prep, all that type of stuff. Instagram,
Appreciate
best place to go.
Yeah. The Recharge Center, we got a website, trcmeals.com, or you can hit us up on Instagram, both of those spots.
And the Instagram is the Recharge Center, all one word.
Or be looking out for check out Sugar Sean O'Malley. He works with us a lot, and we'll be partnering soon. So he's a funny guy. He's developing.
He's a character.
Yeah,
he is
developing a lot of kind of comedy. He's going in the direction of comedy skits. He's got a group which I just love, because I feel like there's not enough laughing going on and silly kind of stupid stuff going on. So if you check him out, you'll probably run across us as well.
Sick. Well, brother, thank you so much for coming on here. Seriously,
I have no words for the
amazing.
Honor. I thank you guys so much. This is the biggest honor of anything I've ever been invited onto. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, our pleasure. Awesome. Well, buddy, let's cut it. Let's cut it there. Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram, we have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.